Good evening. Good evening. I hope you guys can hear me well. Hello, hello, hello. I always love to see people here in the chat. Hello, BBR. Your guys' names are so creative. BB, 4 R's, 4 T's. Okay. Hello to you. Hi, Moon Cloud. Right. Let's get into this. This is probably going to be a very long live. Hope you guys are having dinner as you're watching this. I just had dinner, but something tells me that I'm gonna be eating right after I'm done with this. Some of you guys are probably wondering why it is that I use the image of this cartoon. I know that a lot of you guys are Gen Z, so you probably don't know this cartoon. It's called The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. So how is it that this is a video on the goddess Bhairavi, Tripura Bhairavi? How is it that this is a video on goddess Bhairavi and I'm choosing to use this silly cartoon image? Well, consider the following. This image of Bhairavi that we're seeing here, this is not really her true form. Her true form is her mantra, which is Hasraim, Hasakalrim, Hasrauhu. Her true form is her mantra, and her true form is also her yantra. What is the yantra of a deity? The yantra of a deity is basically the deity itself, but in geometric form. So this is also her true form. This over here that we're seeing, this is not her true form. This is the form that the Vedic culture, that the Hindu culture, the Hindu religion, I suppose you could say, came up with as a way of interfacing with the deity. Because despite the fact that this geometric form is her true form, it is more, how can I put it? It is a form that is a little too abstract and it's harder to relate to. A human form is easier to relate to, And so in a way, this is the form that is a marriage between the Hindu imagination and the true nature of the deity. It is a combination, it's a marriage between those two things. You know what I mean? But it's not necessarily her true form. But Bhairavi, of course, within the material plane has many avatars. You know what I mean? And so the reason why I picked this cartoon of the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy is because a lot of this cartoon has to do with overcoming death, making death your slave. Because these two cartoon characters, these two children, Billy and Mandy, they basically manage to make death their slave, And since so much of Bhairavi is overcoming death, overwhelming death, you know what I mean? I just thought it was a nice little idea. All right, then, let us get into the actual document. Oh, look, I have the Mars in the 7th right here, but I'm still not finished with it. I'm still not finished with it. Let us begin with the Bhairavi live stream. So, as the goddess of the Muladhara, she is likened to the Kundalini, and she is related to exciting your energy, taming your energy, and directing it upwards. Now, I did not add this part, I forgot to add this. Yes, she is the Kundalini, but the Kundalini is also often thought to exist in two states. It could either exist in its cold, coiled up states, and that state does not really relate to Bhairavi, or she can exist in her activated states. The activated state is what relates to Bhairavi. Mother Bhairavi is the main slayer of demons, and all the major demon-slaying goddesses are said to be her forms, like Mahalakshmi, the great slayer of poverty and material unhappiness and concerns, Mahasaraswati, which is the great slayer of ignorance, and of course Mahakali, which is the great slayer of the ego or the false sense of I. One of the things that stops us from directing our energy inwards and upwards is material dissatisfaction. We are oppressed by poverty and the various external burdens of the material life. So in slaying these demons, this goddess of the Kundalini can preserve our energy so that we can inhale it and send it upwards. Something else that gets in the way of spiritual development is, of course, ignorance. But the specific type of ignorance she deals with is the ignorance of the self, not knowing who you are and lacking self-awareness. Yet another impediment is falsity, self-delusion, and attachment to a false sense of self. Mother Mother Bhairavi, of course, destroys all of this. She is the fiery goddess of self-knowledge and truth, and we shall explore how. Bhairavi is said to heal the ascendant. So, all of the Mahavidyas, let me come up with my notepad. All of the Mahavidyas have their own specific planet that they are specifically said to heal, to refine, to correct, and to perfect. Let me quickly list out here. Let me think of them all. Kamala. She makes use of the moon's mantra Shreem to heal Venus. Then we have Matangi. Matangi makes use of Mercury's mantra Aim to heal the sun. What else do we have? We have Bagalamukhi. Bagalamukhi makes use of Saturn's mantra Hlim to heal Mars, etc., etc., etc. And then we have Bhairavi. Bhairavi, which makes use of her mantra Hasraim, Hasakalrim, Hasrao, to heal the ascendant. And something else that is said of Bhairavi is that if you're suffering from a situation where multiple planets in your birth chart are in trouble, a lot of people say that worshipping Bhairavi is a generally good idea because she can heal multiple planets at the same time because she heals the ascendant. Anyway, where were we? I hope you guys can hear me right. Can you guys hear me? I hope I'm not just speaking and you guys aren't hearing me. No, this is not about Ashwini and Magatu, but whatever. I did have a good birthday. Thank you very much. Glad you guys are catching a live. Wait, Billy and Mandy is called Buddy Mere Buddy? Let me Google this for a quick second. Buddy. What have you seen? I thought this was Billy and Mandy. You've deceived me. Yes, Soul 50. Oh, I love the way that you've expressed this. I love the way that you've expressed this. Okay. All right. Let me continue then. Where was I? Heals the ascendant. And so, Bhairavi is said to heal the ascendant, and so she heals the self. And she's related to directing the self correctly. As the slayer of demons, in truth, she focuses on your own internal demons, because those are the evils that then make manifest external evils. Our demons are our insecurities, our fears, our anxieties, our ignorance, and our shadow self. She's the goddess that confronts you to your own fears. She forces upon you a sort of bravery by either throwing you into the cave of your own fears, or revealing to you the darkness and evils that have always been inside and around you. She confronts the demons and eats them, and those who worship her gain the same ability. In consuming demons, she becomes more terrifying than even them, because actually, what is more terrifying than the dark is indeed the lights, and as a consequence, fire, because fire eats darkness to reveal lights. Bhairavi plays a role in blessing the body with beauty by destroying that which is ugly within us. For evil perverts the soul, which then perverts the body. But more watery deities like Kamala and Lalita bless with beauty by increasing that which is lovely about us. Bhairavi purifies from within to create a brilliant and attractive form from without. As the warrior goddess, she does indeed destroy external enemies, but she also teaches us that our external enemies exist on account of our internal weaknesses, because there's a relationship between one's weaknesses and one's enemies, as one is only truly ever attacked, as one is only ever truly attacked and oppressed on the basis of one's own perceived vulnerabilities. So the ultimate way in which Bhairavi destroys the forces of the external is by first forcing you to really see yourself, your frailties, your faults, your fears, your shadows, and then to light those aspects on fire. All right, so let me see if I can find a particular image of Mother Bhairavi. I want to find an image of her where she's holding a book. Where she's holding a book. Well, over here she's holding a scroll. Over here she's holding a sort of scroll. I don't exactly know what that is, but I'm going to presume that's a scroll too. Over here she's also holding a scroll. But there was one where she was holding an actual book. But whatever. I suppose a scroll will do. All right, in any case, in the iconography, in the images that you'll find of Mother Bhairavi, she's holding a book or a scroll, which is very interesting because when you study the iconography of all of the other Mahavidyas, Bhairavi is the only one that holds a book. It's very, very interesting. So she's a goddess that relates to fire. She's a goddess that relates to death. She's a goddess that relates to revelation, and she's also holding a book. And so what this is telling us is that her fire is not just a random fire that's just burning and burning things. It is a fire that is teaching you things. It is a fire that is teaching you things, that is revealing things to you. And she's specifically revealing you to yourself, you know. She's specifically revealing you to yourself. Let me see what images we can find here. I really like this particular image because it's particularly frightening. I like that. She is also said to burn with the effulgence of 1,000 suns. She is that hot, literally. All right, then. Before we continue, let us check the chat. Where are we? Is Shreem also a Jupiter mantra? Because Shreem is actually the moon's mantra, but is it also a Jupiter mantra? I wouldn't be surprised if it were, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if it were also. But could you share a source, Vigilant Hawk, that Shreem is also a Jupiter mantra? I personally have never encountered that. Did I read that or did I experience that? It's something that you read. If you want sources, I will try to find some live streamings and some books where you will find references to that. But let me try to think really quickly to books that tell you. Okay, let's try a quick Google search if you're looking for sources. Okay. Mahavidyas and Navagrahas. Navagrahas obviously mean planets. So let's try to see if we can find anything here. The 9 planets and the Mahavidyas. Okay, so over here, for example, you see Matangi is related to the sun. But what is Matangi's mantra? Matangi's mantra is Aim. And so Matangi is related to the sun, but she relates to the sun through her mantra that is Aim. But the thing about the Aim mantra is that Aim is Mercury's mantra. Mercury mantra. Mercury has this mantra. It's one of Mercury's mantras. But Mercury also has the Aim mantra. Where can we find that? Let's see if AI over here can help us with that. But in any case, Bhuvaneshwari is related to the moon, but Bhuvaneshwari relates to the moon through the sun's mantra, which is Hreem. Hreem is the sun mantra. So for example, Om Hram Hreem Hrom, that's the sun's mantra. Hreem. I'm not pronouncing it well right now. You know, whenever I'm speaking English and then I'm having to speak these mantras, the accent is not really going to be helping. But when I'm actually doing the chanting, that's not how I'm actually pronouncing it like that. Phonetics is a very interesting thing in language. But in any case, so yeah. But yeah, you should just Google them. Google what planets the Mahavidyas are each related to, and then Google the actual mantras of the Mahavidyas. You're going to see that like there's a connection between. You're going to see that like the mantras that they're using are mantras of other planets, despite the fact that they're related to other planets, right? So there's that. All right. So where are we? Where are we? She is indeed a goddess of pure fire. But the truth of this fire is her purity and sainthood. It has been long understood throughout various mystical schools and religions that to approach a god is actually very dangerous. Not because the god themselves wishes to do us harm, but because gods are so pure, so saintly, so perfect that in proximity to them, we feel overwhelmed by the realization of our own sinful, lowly, and flawed nature. And this awareness is so painful to mere mortals that we literally spontaneously combust in their presence. Bhairavi is fire because we, in our imperfect and impure state, perceive her as fire because her purity is so intense that we literally burn when we approach her. And again, not only is Bhairavi always perfecting herself, but she will force perfection upon you by exposing you to your own ugly hidden truths. Naturally, it is said that Bhairavi is fire on earth, Agni, lightning in the atmosphere, Vidyut, and sun in the sky, Surya, which can also be interpreted as shining a light into the shadow with fire, sudden realizations of who we are with lightning, and establishing oneself in the truth like the sun. Indeed, Bhairavi relates to epiphanies about the self. She relates also to shadow work and to the turning inward of the light of awareness to discover ourselves. What is so interesting about this lovely but terrifying goddess is that among her various ornaments is a book, a warrior goddess that carries a book. But of course, because she is the flame that sets fire to our own shadows, she reveals us to ourselves. She is a goddess that therefore relates to self knowledge. What is interesting is that she is also connected to Paravak, essentially the original nature of existence. Speech is said to occur at four levels: the verbal, Vaikari, the mental, Madhyama, the felt, Pashyanti, and of course the first utterance, Para. Actually, to encapsulate what Paravak is in one word is not very easy, but let us attempt to describe it, as doing so will also tell us more about the nature of Mother Bhairavi herself. Everything has its original nature, uncorrupted by social programming and free of the various perversions of the intellect and ego. Everything has its true, pure, saintly original self, a self that is raw and that is yet to be bent and shaped into something different. To use a clumsy analogy, we're going to be working backwards from Vaikari to Para, using the example of a pencil. Vaikari is the most articulate form of speech, but also the most polluted because it mixes multiple different sounds and energies. This is very much like a pencil that is made of wood, graphite, and paints used to make it. The pencil was also crafted by the imagination of man. The state of para in this example is the original graphite before it is mined under the earth. Pashyanti is intuition, but also imagination. It is the enlightened vision that we have of something. And so it is how one would approach raw graphite and have visions of its potential for something greater. Then finally, Madhyama is the actual thinking and planning related to making the graphite into a pencil. All right, let's check the chat before we continue. Let's see. Cartoon Network Brazil. I love my Brazilians. The internet, you'll find Brazilians everywhere on the internet. You guys are everywhere. Boa noite. I also love that cremation ground image of her. All right, Vigilant Hawk. Okay, interesting. I agree completely, Soul 50. I agree completely with that. When you do sadhana, you do go beyond the books. I started reading the Todala Tantra and I did not finish. That is a book that I did not finish. I I'm not sure if I can answer this question. I'm not sure if I can answer this question. You have IO 7625. But I don't think that just because you have significant 8 house placements, you're automatically Bhairavis. But also, it really depends on the loose definition of Bhairavis that different people have come up with. All right, let's continue. So, Bhairavi as Para is she from whom all things come and to whom all things return. She is the womb and the tomb. When we worship her, she returns us to our original unperverted states. We have to now have a conversation of purity and saintliness. What does it mean to be pure? Purity in truth has many forms. One of the lies of the world is that all things pure look and act the same and are cookie cutter. This is false. Gold is pure because it is 100% gold. Silver is pure because it is 100% silver. Neither one of them is more pure than the other, but if you mix gold and silver, it is no longer pure. Something is pure when it understands its own nature and fully embodies it. Bhairavi makes us pure, not in the sense of removing us all from what did I write here? Bhairavi makes us pure, not in the sense of removing from us all that is unique and beautiful and true to us. No. She makes us pure by ridding from us everything that is in the way of our complete embodiment of our own nature. Bhairavi destroys social conditioning because this is one of the evils of the world that perverts our own unique purity. She destroys our excessive concern with what other people think because that gets in the way of us being who we truly are. She destroys our fear of our own selves, fear of our own power. She destroys the ignorance of the self because when you know yourself, when you know who you are, and when you know who you're meant to be, this knowledge also helps you to become pure. Bhairavi is self-knowledge, and she also and she's also the destroyer. And she also destroys, my goodness. And she also destroys all perversions in the way of true self-knowledge and self-embodiment. She is Paravak because she helps us to contact that true inner voice deep within all beings. That voice that reminds us and teaches us who we truly are and that gives us the power to be it. Do not fear that in making you pure, she will destroy what is most precious about you. When you embody her energy, you are not interested in living in a cookie cutter world. Instead, you want to help everyone around you to destroy all forms of inner ignorance so that they can embody their own pure forms. In this way, Bhairavi can also help to deify a person because the more pure or saintly one is, the more one graduates into godhood. Look at the gods themselves. Don't they each themselves embody their own unique force of creation? The saintly goddess of beauty, the pure god of wealth, the unperverted god of music, the unadulterated goddess of knowledge, the undiluted god of death, the perfect goddess of creation. Each god and each goddess is saintly, is pure, and is also different from one another. As though I have not belabored the point enough, my last example are gems. Diamonds are perfect, but so are emeralds. The ruby is pure, but so is the pearl. Each stone perfectly reflects the light of the sun and filters it in its own way. Purity isn't white. Purity isn't black. Purity isn't red. All the colors in their undiluted state are pure. It is said that gemstones are so perfect that they are literally gods on earth. As the goddess, as the goddess that makes you saintly, Bhairavi makes you into a god or goddess. She is also related to various cities, various perfections, and various spiritual powers. All right, let's check the chat a little bit. Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? You know something? I do not research a lot about Atmakarakas, unfortunately. And so I cannot give you a very good explanation on them, to be completely honest. Atmakarakas are one of those various astrological concepts that I've never really given myself the time to practically study and to practically understand. And so if you ask a guy like me, having something as the Bharani Atmakarka is not going to be more impactful than your ascendants. But I will say this one thing about Atmakarakas that I've started to see is that your Atmakaraka planet does I'm starting to see that it does actually have a lot of effect on your personality and your appearance. I will say that. I will say that. But I still have to study it a lot more to really understand its place. To be completely honest, I can't really think of a specific Mahavidya that relates to Pusha, but as we go on with this live, I'm going to relate some aspects of Pusha to Bhairavi. But a specific goddess that relates to, I can't really think of one that completely embodies it. I can't think of one. And thank you for enjoying my Pusha video. Interesting experience. Thank you for sharing. How do you see which Mahavidya you embody? To be honest, I just studied a person. It's my own little personal intuitive process. If you're looking for a science, I can't provide that for you, unfortunately. I can definitely see many aspects of Kali in Pushya. I can definitely see that. But as a pure embodiment of Kali, I can't. I can't. That I. Yeah. Yes, Venus is more self-indulgent, which is why Shreem is used to control those very self-indulgent aspects because Shreem is the mantra of satiation. And so it's sat and so when Venus is satiated, it is no longer as self-indulgent. See, I see. No, no, no. Matangi is different. Matangi helps you to connect to your own originality so that you can express it. Bhairavi helps you to disconnect to external perversion so you can connect to your own inner individuality, but Matangi helps you express it. It's the difference between Para and Vaikari. Vaikari is the full material expression of the thing, but Para is the pure embodiment of the thing before it has been made manifest. I'm so glad you did. Oh, it's your Lagnesh. But as your Lagnesh, do you feel like you related to its Soul 50? It is the lotus because from perfecting itself and from self knowledge, it becomes deified. I will talk a little bit about Kritika in this video also, yes. Matangi is definitely mercurial, yes. It's she is created through Mercury's mantra. The embodiment of the Great Mother, okay. I mean, listen, I'd be very curious to read the source, that's all. I wouldn't disagree with it. Really? Look at us, Aditya. We're so in sync. All right, let's go back to the thing. To the thing. Where are we now? Where are we now? All right, you can compare the goddess that purifies you, Bhairavi, with the very goddess of pollution and corruption herself, Matangi. Matangi is said to be the polluted goddess because she represents the spoken word, the expressed word, Vaikari. When something is spoken or made manifest, it is often divorced from its pure state and is then mixed with other substances. This is, of course, necessary because when something exists in its pure states, like gold or silver or graphite, one cannot make immediate use of it. One needs the graphite in the pencil, the wood in the chair, the metal in our technology in order for them to be useful. But in this process, we have removed their saintliness. All right. Now, to lift a quote from another book, not from another book because I didn't quote any other book here, to lift a quote from a book, and this one by David Kinsley. Tripura Bhairavi arises or becomes present when the body declines and decays, which is a natural, inevitable, and irresistible force. She is also evident in self destructive habits, such as eating tamasic food, food having a quality associated with ignorance and lust, and drinking liquor, which wear down the body and mind. She is present in the loss of semen, which weakens males. Anger, jealousy, and other selfish emotions and actions strengthen Bhairavi's presence in the world. Righteous behavior, conversely, makes her weaker. So that's a quote by David Kinsley, because of course he's written many books on the goddess. We can interpret this as Bhairavi having such a dislike of falsity, of perversion, of impurity, that wherever such things make themselves manifest in the world, she suddenly appears to destroy and to devour them. She is also said to be Kundalini. But what is interesting about Kundalini is that they say you shouldn't awaken Kundalini unless you're ready, lest you are destroyed by this light, this energy, and its realizations. What does this mean? Can the truth actually destroy a person? Should one be cautious with truths and reveal them as a person develops? Let us use a few examples of someone coming into an epiphany of themselves and how this actually may end up destroying their lives. Ah, yes, Mother Bhairavi is also a goddess of epiphanies. So, example one of how the truth can destroy you. Imagine a woman. Her whole life, she's never had the freedom to do what she wanted. As a girl, she was denied her hobbies, her interests, and was commanded to follow the routines given to her by her parents. As an adult, she is in a relationship with a man who prioritizes his needs over hers because she's never been taught to value herself. One day, something triggers inside of her. She wakes up one day and refuses to do housework. She won't cook. She won't clean. Instead, she decides to go for a walk in her neighborhood. It's like she's seeing her neighborhood for the first time. She keeps going and she's now walking on the side of the highway leading to town. Hours later, she's still walking and she never felt freer. And she's never felt freer. She returns home at an ungodly hour, finding her husband standing in the living room, worried sick. She tells him she's leaving him and is going to dedicate her life to traveling the world. All right, so this was a very simple example of somebody who has been living their lives a particular way their whole lives, never really, not really having a lot of self-knowledge, never really having giving herself the opportunity to really be herself or to discover herself. Her Her true self has been oppressed for so many years, decades, up until adulthood. And then one day, something in her triggers, Maybe it's because she's been unhappy for so long, and then finally that unhappiness has reached a rock bottom. Listen, something triggered inside of her. And she realized that how she's living her life is not the way she was meant to be living her life. But then this sudden realization, guess what? In a way, it quote unquote destroys her life because it ends her marriage. It disconnects her from her family because these relationships and these relationship dynamics that she's had all this time have been based on her oppressing herself, her constricting herself. So obviously the day that she accepts herself, obviously the day she allows herself to be herself, well, that's going to be very tumultuous for her relationships. When your relationship with somebody is based on you not being yourself, the day that you are yourself, well, that relationship may not necessarily survive, you see. And so this is some of the ways that Bhairavi and her realizations, her lightning realizations, can in a way end up destroying your life. You know what I mean? Sometimes spiritual alignments can cause a lot of material upheaval. It's not always the case. It is not always the case that when you are spiritual, your material life suffers. That's not always the case. But depending on your specific case, that could be the case. I use the word case a lot. Example 2. Imagine a man. He is now 40 years old and suddenly he realizes something. He is gay. All this time he spent dating, getting married, and having children. He never really confronted this truth within himself. He would always evade it, ignore it, deny it profoundly to himself. Then one day, he falls in love with another man. The feelings are too deep to be denied. He wants to give himself over completely to this man he met. But there's a problem. His whole life was built on a lie. Worse, it was built on self-denial. So what does he do? Does he continue living this lie now that he has fully confronted himself to the reality of who he is? Or does he destroy his marriage and his family all to live life with another man? And so these are some of the things that Bhairavi does to you. Unfortunately, some of the things that I did not add in this document, but I guess I could just add them right now. I guess I could just add them right here. Why not? Is that she is a goddess of death. But she is a goddess that relates to she relates to the realizations that arrive from death and from contemplating one's own mortality. When you're the type of person that really thinks deeply and really contemplates deeply your own life, you start asking yourself the question, am I really happy? Am I really living the life that I want to live? When I die, will I look back into my life and say, yes, I've really lived the life that I wanted to live? When you're somebody who thinks 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, when you think about your death, it helps you realize, contemplating death a lot of times helps you to appreciate life a lot more. You cling to life a lot more, And the sort of person that is always thinking about how they will look back into their life once they're dead. Yes, they're the type of person that a lot of times they take life a little bit more seriously and they want to live life the way that they want to, the way that they, you see, and this is the reason why I like to write things down, because when I just speak spontaneously, I am not very good at that. I am not one of those YouTubers that can just turn on a camera and just start blurting out their thoughts. I like to be organized. But in any case, so do you see how sudden realizations of who you are can destroy you? Do you see the destructive effects of aligning yourself to your own truths can have on your life? How this can be a messy process? One of the things Bhairavi does is she also reveals to you your desires, your true desires. She removes from you shame and guilt. She removes societal programming that was built against your desires. She blesses you with true knowledge about your desires because many of us do not know what we want, or we are confused as to what we want. There are those that define the word purpose as extreme desire, a desire so strong it becomes the very reason you exist, the very reason that you live. Because Bhairavi is interested in correctly directing you in life, because she is interested in teaching you the truth of who you are, she is also interested in helping you to discover your truest desires, which were the very reason you were made incarnates. As the goddess that heals your ascendants, she wants to teach you what you were put on this earth for. And she wants to help give you meaning in your life. You know what I mean? She wants to help you really get into the bottom of what it is that you want, what it is that you desire, so you can properly direct yourself. So continue on here. Bhairavi is related to death also in that, by forcing you to contemplate your own mortality, she forces you to really contemplate why you exist to begin with. The sort of people that contemplate death are the ones most likely to really contemplate life, living, and existence the most, and to take such things seriously. Often, when we contemplate the frail nature of the body and the unforgiving nature of time, we ask ourselves, why am I even here? And then each individual comes up with an answer that is gratifying to him individually, or to her individually. One man might contemplate death and decide that he wants to give his life to medicine. One woman may contemplate death and decide that she wants to travel the world. Another man may contemplate death and decides that he wants to party until his last dying breath. All right then, let us check the chat. Let us check the chats. Okay. Shreem on its own is powerful enough to control Venus's self-indulgent nature. I'm gonna have to slightly disagree with you on that point, but it's okay. "20 years of sadhana, very good." Do I offer services regarding which goddesses to worship? Yes, I do, but mostly as a means of remedying your planets. But yes, I do, in a small way. Wow, you mean you got hives from chanting the Shreem mantra? That is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm very curious about that. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear this. Eerie Alice. Yes, that's how you pronounce your name. I remember. All right then, let's go back then. Okay, so some of the many names of Bhairavi that you will find in her thousand name hymn is she who is the truth itself, she who dwells at the sacred place of truth, she whose body is truth, she who wears truth as an ornament, she who dwells among those who speak the truth, she who is the abode of truth. Other names include she who eats flesh, she who bears flesh, she who consumes flesh, she who devours flesh, she who drinks blood, she who delights in blood, she who loves blood, she who feeds on blood, she who is fond of blood. Other interesting names are, I don't even know how to pronounce this. Oof, Kotaraksi. I am sure I did a horrible job, but in any case, which means whose eyes are sunken from being emaciated, to show you just how ascetic, dry, and severe she is. She's not really a goddess of fun or of play or enjoyment or indulgence for the most part. Such descriptions, of course, belong to Tripura Sundari, the beauty of the three worlds. Then we have her mantra, which we'll explore just a little bit. And what we're going to be exploring isn't even the fullness of what her mantra does to a person. We're just going to be breaking down a little bit the syllables of her mantra. Her mantra is Hasraim, Hasakalrim, Hasrao. And to quote David Frawley, this mantra has the power to uncover and destroy all negativity, which this entire document we've been discussing how Bhairavi has this effect. She eats your shadows, she eats your demons, she confronts you to your own demons, she blesses you with self-knowledge, etc., etc. He goes on to say that it probes our psyches and annihilates all hidden negativities therein. We can break the vowels down thusly. The ha sound that exists in Hasrim, Hasklirim is the exhale, the expelling of evil, the sun. The sa is the hissing inhale, pulling in energy for burning. The ka represents kama, or desire and attraction, and it helps to connect you to your original desire or purpose. So, ha over here, you're removing from yourself evil. Sa over here, you're gathering energy for yourself. Ka over here, you're gathering energy for the purpose of aligning yourself to your true desires and chasing them. La, the earth element, is the magnetic force that pulls things towards us. So you're pulling to yourself your true desire. You're pulling to yourself that thing that you were put on this earth to be. Ra, which is fire, perception, discernment, bravery, purity. And of course, Im, which represents Shakti, the power of the will, intelligence, and making things happen. But David Frawley breaks down the mantra in the following way. Hiss, which is H and S, relates to the hissing sound of the Kundalini serpent, and it encourages its awakening. To go a little into detail on the Ka sound, it of course is also related to the mantras Kreem and Kleem. Kreem carries the Ka sound because it relates to destroying all boundaries between ourselves and our truest path, destiny, purpose, or desire. The difference between it and Kleem is sensuality, as the La sound within it carries more material and sensual connotations, as it is associated with Lam, the earth mantra. All right, then, let's check the chat. Let's see what we have here. Yes, I will mention Kritika just a little bit. I don't know anything about Chiron. Chiron is an asteroid, isn't it? Yeah, I have nothing to say about that. I love this horse stare. I love this. I love this. Your way of expressing that idea. Anytime I entered into a sadhana of the Shri mantra, honestly, things were just very, very blissful for me in general. I've never suffered from anything like that. The only mantra that is giving me like very dramatic and not necessarily always the most pleasant results is Kreem, but not Shreem. Not Shreem at all. Oh, let's not talk about Tripura Sundari just yet. We're in the Bhairavi live, so let's not go there. That's a very good point, Aditya. And Bhairavi helps us to understand that. Bhairavi can bless you with that immunity, yes. Alright then, let's go back. We're almost finished. I thought that this live was going to take us a long time, to be honest, because there were like 10 pages almost. But we're almost finished. Alright then, let's talk about Rahu and Ketu and how it may relate to Bhairavi. Now, it is important to note that there are specific goddesses that are directly related to both Rahu and Ketu and its various significations. But I mentioned Rahu and Ketu here for the following reasons. Kundalini. The proper alignment of Rahu and Ketu is said to awaken and properly channel the Kundalini. And of course, Bhairavi is the very goddess of the Kundalini herself. And so that is a connection that Rahu and Ketu have to Bhairavi. They have a connection to Bhairavi through Kundalini. Ketu is like Paravak, and Rahu is like Vaikari. One must align these two forces such that the innate power of Ketu can gain expression and empower the consciousness of Rahu. Ketu also represents the conquering of the Muladhara and being crowned its king, whereas Mars represents struggling within the Muladhara and Saturn represents the actual struggles themselves. Ketu represents one who has overcome the external so much so that one can now recede within oneself comfortably. Ketu is the inhaling force, Rahu is the exhaling force. Since Bhairavi is related to Kundalini, or rather she is said to be Kundalini, we find that respected mystics and astrologers link both Rahu and Ketu as relating specifically to the Kundalini. For example, Vamanadeva Shastri writes for the American Institute of Vedic Studies saying, both nodes, Rahu and Ketu, make up the Kundalini Shakti or serpent's power, with Ketu as its perceptive force and Rahu as its creative force. The astrologer Sam Gepi says the following in one of his books: the nodes are related to the Kundalini, the part of us not in a body. The astrologer, this name is hard for me to pronounce, the astrologer Yildiz Sethi says the following in his website: when Rahu can turn its purpose away from the material gratification and unify its purpose with Ketu, then we have the raising of the Kundalini. The astrologer Kamila Sultan says in her website, Mula means roots and it also is Muladhara chakra, whereas the Kundalini power lies dormant, and has to be activated. Ketu rules this, and Rahu, with its rulership of Shadabisha, the crown chakra, indicates the real spiritual insights provided by the nodes. She goes on to say, the symbol of Shadabisha is the 1,000-petaled flower. Shadabisha is where the Kundalini flowers, and we reach towards the full awareness of our consciousness. So we find that to activate Kundalini, we must activate the sleepy Ketu to the misguided Rahu, so that we can connect power to awareness, energy to knowledge. And naturally, this is what Mother Bhairavi herself is all about. She destroys our perversions and illusions, gives us energy to wake up, and then teaches us about our true nature so that we can finally direct ourselves intelligently and become who we are always meant to become. And also, if we recall what was said earlier regarding the role of Bhairavi in deifying an individual, the Kundalini does the same thing. And if we remember the story of Rahu and Ketu, that of them wanting to become like the gods, immortal, we can once again see a connection. Vedic stories demonstrate to us that the gods conspire against mere mortals to keep them at the level of mere mortals. The hatred that the gods have of Rahu and Ketu is actually the hate that they have towards us. Now, the word hate is being used for effects because it really is part of the divine game. It is the role of the gods to make this path to godhood difficult for humans in some way. But in contemplating Rahu and Ketu and Kundalini, we realize that we, spiritual aspirants, are indeed the serpent. We ourselves are constantly trying to figure out ways of becoming great and becoming divine. All right then. Checking in the chat before we end with the last page. Yes, that video is coming. You want to know the reason why I took that video out, the video of people born in wealthy families, is because I was trying to be spontaneous. Like you guys see that I always write things down. I don't really just speak off the cuff because I'm afraid of missing information, not going into detail enough about certain things, you know what I mean? But then I decided, okay, whatever. Let me just experiment. You're never gonna get good at something if you don't try. So when it comes to that, to the people born wealthy and people born poor video, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna do this live stream. I'm not gonna have a script. I'm just gonna go off the cuff. But then I was like, uh, nah. Let me do the Bhairavi live first, and then let me do that. So that video is coming. That video is coming. I'll probably do it in the next few days, probably. But yeah, when you say the most simple way, I'm not sure if I. You mean the most simple way without reciting her mantras or anything else? In that case, you could perform one very simple exercise. Get a notebook and write down all of your fears, write down all of your insecurities, write down all the things about yourself that you're constantly running away from. Write down all the truths about yourself that you're constantly running away from and confront yourself to those truths. You know, because if you chant her mantra, she's also going to do the same thing to you. Listen, if you want a video about Kritika women, I don't know when I'm gonna do that video, but it's not gonna be this year because I don't have anything scheduled for Kritika this year, and it's not gonna be next year either because next year I have other videos that I'm scheduled to do. I will say Pusha was a bit of a surprise this year because I was not expecting to release the Pusha video this year. Instead of Pusha, I was actually planning to release Maga. But now that I've done the Pusha video, my next video is most likely going to be Maga. And then next year, I'm probably going to do Uttara Bhadapada. What else? What else? Let me think. Either this year or next year, I'm going to do a short video on Purva Shada. Let me think, 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 let me think. Either this year or next year. No, it's going to be next year most likely. I do a video on Purva Palguni. Yeah, next year is going to be very much focusing on Venus Nakshatras. Like in terms of these like longer videos, that's what I'm most likely going to be doing. And then I'm going to do also an Uttara Bhadapada video. Yeah. Yeah. Kritika, I might do one of those like 25-minute videos that I do, when I just go off describing general symbolism and personality. I might do that. Can I suggest books for understanding Maha videos? Of course. Of course I can. Books that I constantly read. These are books that I'm always reading and rereading and reading and rereading. Books by David Kinsley. This one specifically, Tantric Visions of the Divine Feminine. You will find it's a book about the Mahavidyas. Another book that I'm always reading and rereading is David Frawley's book. David Frawley, Tantric, yes. Tantric Yoga and the Wisdom Goddesses. This is another book that I'm always reading and rereading. Let me think of another Mahavidya book. I can't think of any, but let's Google Mahavidya books, and let's see what's available on the internet. Okay, whatever. Let's check Amazon. Let's see what's available here. We find again David Kinsley here. David Kinsley here. Never read this book. 4.5 stars. Let's check this out. Let me put that. Shakti Rising, 4.8 stars. Embracing shadow and light on the goddess path to wholeness. Okay, interesting. I'm interested in buying this. I'm probably gonna get that. 10 Mahavidyas, The Secret of Adi Parashakti. This cover looks very AI. I I do not like seeing AI things. I do not like seeing AI things. It has a 5 rating, but it only has 1 review, so I don't know about that. This one has 170 reviews. The Secret of Adi Parashakti, the 10 Mahavidyas. But I think this is okay. All right. I'm seeing new books that I'm going to be, but 35 pages. And how much is this book? 35 pages. $0 in Kindle? Okay, interesting. Okay, well, whatever. Seems like a book that I'd be interested in. Right now, I'm reading some other David Kinsley books. I'm reading Hindu Goddesses, and I'm reading The Goddess Mirror. So I need to finish those books first before I allow myself to get new books, because I don't want to be collecting books so they can collect dust. I can run into that habit, unfortunately. In the mystical realms of the ancient whatever, I'll get it. Okay. How do I decide which nakshatra energies to explore? How do I decide? I'm always casually collecting information on nakshatras, right? Casually collecting information. When I feel like I have a lot of data, enough data that I can make a video, I decide to make a video on that topic. So, for example, I mean, obviously, you guys know that I make a reference to a lot of movies and things like that. If 5 years ago I watched 1 or 2 movies or 3 or 4 movies about a particular nakshatra and I connected points, and then the next year I watched 2 more movies, and then the next year I watched 3 or 4 more movies, and then finally I arrive at a year where like I've had like 17 movies where like they're each exploring very, very similar themes, and I can tie them to a particular nakshatra. Then that I might decide to do more and more research about that placement, and then finally decide to like make a video. At least that would make like one section of the video, because if I decide to make a video where I'm talking about different aspects of a placement at different sections, then it's like 20 to 30 movies of similar themes in the first section, 15 movies of the similar theme in the second section, things like that. I'm glad you liked the Pusha video. Thank you. I don't remember her saying that Pusha granted Uttarpadapada's wishes. Did that happen? Thank you, Soul50. Yeah. I actually have never. Is there a lot of AI written stuff on the internet, really? Like books on mysticism and things like that? I fortunately have not come across any. Yeah, I also do not like AI images of the goddesses or anything, to be honest. Oh, you've read it, Ita546, the Shakti Rising book. But, like, would you recommend it? Yes, she did correlate the fairy godmother with Bagalamukhi because she talked about Bagalamukhi's abilities to make everything its opposites. Are we finished with our document? No, we're not. Okay, let's finish. Oh my god. Let's finish. Okay, as the supreme goddess of fire, there is some relationship that she has to every nakshatra related to fire. So, let us start. Bharani, the fire of the yoni. Bharani has a lot to do with how one directs oneself in life. It contemplates one's deepest desires, desires so deep they are indeed one's purposes, and then it orients one's entire existence around it. It is one of those nakshatras who know who they are from a young age and dedicate their lives into building themselves into becoming the sort of person who is worthy of what they desire. They tend to be very focused as they as though they had this odd understanding of where they're meant to go. Yeah. Bharani is one of those nakshatras, or really it's the nakshatra that is like they know who they are, they know what they want, and they just don't care. You know what I mean? They go after the thing that they want. They really think very, very deeply about why it is that they exist. And they really think very, very deeply about making their life worthwhile. You know what I mean? Yeah, they really do contemplate that kind of stuff a lot. They really contemplate a lot. What is that one thing that I want, that one thing that I desire that will literally make existence worthwhile, that will literally bring value to my existence, that will make me want to live? What is that thing that I can aspire towards that will make me want to live, that will make me want to exist? You know, Barney tends to create people who are very, very deeply, deeply sure of themselves. You know, people who are just not swayed. They are not swayed left or right. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's very, very powerful. Kritika, Agni, the fire of the appetite, the fire of someone who is hungry and devours shamelessly, at least until shame is programmed into him. This nakshatra is often shamelessly itself, particularly if we speak of the men. The women are often forced to become more self conscious early on. In fact, it is often not even fully aware of its surroundings, and oftentimes can even be thoughtless as they forget about other people's boundaries and interests. The men tend to be ignorant or even indifferent to other people. They concern themselves with their own wants and needs and desires. In this way, they are the stereotypical Aries. But what oftentimes happens to this nakshatra is that they can begin to feel very guilty of being selfish and self-centered, that they even begin to make themselves smaller. They can develop this weird idea that somehow by making themselves unhappy for the sake of others means that they are good. Okay, so one thing that can happen to a lot of Kritika people is that deep down they can be very selfish and very self-centered, but they can be very self-conscious of how selfish and self-centered they are, and they can view their own desires as bad and as evil to such an extent that they feel this weird guilt to deny themselves the things that they want. You know, that is something that can unfortunately happen to a lot of Kitika natives, because it's like they're trying to exist within society, and society is telling them that they cannot go after the things that they want the way that they want to, and society is telling them that they cannot allow themselves to be free and spontaneous, because Kritika at its heart, all the sun nakshatras at their heart, they just want to be free. They just want to be independent. They don't want to care about anything. They don't want to care about anything. They just want to be relaxed. They just want to spread themselves. But the thing is that general society tends to take an issue whenever sun nakshatras, and especially Kritika tends to do that, you know? And Kritika most especially, they can end up growing up and making themselves smaller and denying themselves a lot, you know, and becoming weakened. Then we have Pusha, which is the fire of Brihaspati, the fire of self-discovery, self-awareness, and critical self-reflection. Then we have Vishaka, another Agni-related nakshatra, but in a sense, it is the inverse of Kritika. Whereas Kritika starts off shamelessly chasing its desires, and then society programs shame into it, Vishaka starts off ashamed of pursuing what it wants, and then burns away society's influences and pursues its goals, even if they are taboo. Vishakas can be ruthlessly ambitious and completely indifferent. Okay, so whereas Kritika can start off free, but then start to develop shame as they grow older and society shames them, Vishakas tend to start off quite conventional, very stereotypical Libra, conventional and things like that. Over time, they start to resent how much they are letting go of the things that they truly want, that eventually they wake up and they tell society to go screw itself, and then they go after what they want, even if it causes a lot of turmoil. So Kritikas start off selfish, and then as they grow up, they are guilted into being more selfless. Vishakas can start off more selfless until one day they resent society so much that they become extremely selfish, willing to step on people to get what they want. Vishakas can be like ruthlessly ambitious, frighteningly ambitious. You know, yeah. And they're not afraid of being rebellious if it means getting what they want as well. Vishakas can be very much like that. And then we have Purva Bhadrapada, another Agni related nakshatra, but specifically it relates to the spiritual fires that raise a person up. Purva Bhadrapada is simultaneously highly materialistic and highly spiritual. They want to accumulate both at the same time, but they arrive at a point in their lives where they are forced to make a choice between holding on to their worldly desires, worldly treasures, or sacrificing them for spiritual truth and growth. The fire here is that of destroying all attachments to one's mortal self in order to gain a godly identity. Now let's move on to Scorpio. I added the 8 out there, but I'm taking it out now. Scorpio, owing to the overall dry and purifying qualities of Scorpio and its interest in wrestling its own demons, we can see how this goddess would be related in a general sense to this energy. Scorpio is the fire that is within water, and so has a lot to do with asceticism, self-restraint, self-denial, fasting, and all forms of purification to rid oneself of one's own evils, whether these evils are internal in the case of Anuradha or external in the case of Jayeshta. We are finally at the end. 4,000 words, essentially. Whew, I hope that this was a good live for you guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed this live. 42 concurrent viewers, up until now 253 views. Okay, it has a nice meditations and exercises, but it's very much a beginner book. Rising Shakti book, I mean. Okay, well, if you're saying it's very much a beginner book, you're not really selling it very well, and so I guess that means that I'm not going to get it. Thank you for your review. Yes, Saturn's deepest point of debilitation is in this nakshatra. Jupiter and Bharani can describe the kind of husband that you will have, but mostly if you're like a trapped wife type of person, because in that case Jupiter would provide more so in classical times. Jupiter represents the husband. Back then we're like, for a woman to have a husband, he's the one who provides for you economically, he's the one who provides for you intellectually. But nowadays, since there's more equality in the sexes, you will find that less and less Jupiter represents the husband for the average woman. So depending on the kind of culture that you exist in, Jupiter may represent the husband for you. Yes, thank you, Soul50. It's Ashwini, not Barney. I'm sorry, I'm tired. If I were to choose a Mahavidya for Uttara Ashada, I would choose Matangi. I even did a video on this. My Matangi video, I even said that. Oh, for me, my friend Horse Deer, it is the whole sign. Speaking as somebody who, like, speaking as an active astrologer who studies people's lives and things like that, no, it's the whole signs. Because when I study dashas, antardashas, dashas of people's lives, yeah, when their placements are debilitated or very badly placed, it's the whole sign. And rather unfortunate things do happen or are allowed to happen during those times. Listen, if what you want is an intuitive discovery of which goddess is for you, read about them. Do this one thing. Download. Oh, why is this thing keep appearing? Download your images and contemplate them. You could try to go about it astrologically if you like. One way of going about picking your deity is by going by your ascendant's lord, because because if you pick a deity that refines your ascendant lord planets, it's going to make you stronger as a person. But not necessarily everybody is attracted to that. Listen, download the images and discover for yourself intuitively which goddess you're personally attracted to. On a very personal level, I've always been very, very pulled towards Bhairavi. I've always been very pulled towards Bhairavi. I've always been very pulled towards Lalita. I've always been very pulled towards Kali and also Kamala, but also Baglamukhi. So those five goddesses. And actually, throughout different seasons of my life, I alternate between those like five goddesses. I alternate between those five goddesses. Yes. I like Lalita, but if I were to really choose a goddess that I just feel very, very drawn to most often, I would choose Kali. I would choose Kali. I would choose Kali. And then probably after Kali, between those other four, I don't know which one I'd choose. Oh, well, Soul 50, if you personally don't take exaltations as good or bad, I get it. That's your own personal decision. Me personally, I do. I do. Ooh, I'm glad you liked the live. I'm glad you guys liked the live. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. No, not Mars, Venus. Modern times, Venus for both men and women. Do I have a good Jupiter? My Jupiter is in Purva Ashada in the 11th house. So yeah, it's pretty good. It is relatively good. There is that. I also have Moon in the ninth house, but I'm also a Pushya. My sun is in Pushya. So there's that. It's a good idea, Prasana. it's a pretty good idea to focus on a deity of your Mahadasha. And so if you're entering into a Venus Mahadasha, and Venus in Mula is not exactly, because it's in Sagittarius, it's not exactly the best place. It's not exactly the best place. And so chanting Kamala's mantra, the Shri mantra, would be quite helpful for you. Venus, because it is the planet of what we're attracted to, the planet of what we love, the planet that excites us the most. And it's also a giving planet. It's also a generous planet, just like Jupiter. You know, it's just a general planet of love, and so it's pretty straightforward. Do I have any tips on initiating working with the goddess? My only tip is to just jump it right into it. That's what I do. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing for like the last I don't know how many years. I had my solar and Saturn return both. Yes, yes, yes. And thank you, Irialis. Bruchinda, I've been reading your comments. I'm not exactly sure what to say, to be completely honest. I'm still thinking about it. But you know something? I'm the kind of guy that says, when in doubt, just do it anyway. What's the harm? Alright, guys, this has been a great stream. I am so glad you guys could all join. I am tired. I am hungry. Oh, what am I doing? I'm ending the stream without promoting myself. So please join my Patreon. Please like, comment, and share this video. What else is there to say? What else is there to say? Like, comment, and share this video. My readings are back. My readings are open again. What are my readings again? Okay, so here is how my readings are going to work. I've been running various experiments about how I want my readings to work. So $70 now is for personality or career or 1 year prediction. And each one of these readings, of course, comes with remedies and stuff like that. But after I deliver them to you, you get 48 hours free, 48 hours of free questions. Right? So that's $70 either for one or the other. And then $180 if you want all of these readings at the same time. If you want personality and career and 1 year prediction. You see. And this also comes with 48 hours of free questions. And so as you can see, it's cheaper than if you were to get each one individually because, you know. And so, yes, if you're interested in booking a reading with me, this is my email, 12.hidden.octave at gmail.com. So these are my readings. Readings are open again. What else do I have to promote? I think that's pretty much everything. Then I also have books on astrology, plenty of articles on astrology. And yes, I guess that's all the promotion that I have. Thank you. Do I have any advice for starting Lagna Lord Mahadashin? I'm very excited, and this is very good gut feeling that it's going to bring something good into my life. Advice. I can't think of any advice. Just chant the Kamala mantra. Bye. Thank you guys all so much. Goodbye. I will be sleeping well. Thank you. Thank you so much, Soul50. Thank you so much, Prasana. Thank you so much, everybody. How do I pronounce this name? Lean. Okay. Thank you to you too. All right then. Bye.